Hello, and welcome back to the very first movie review of the year, where it's time to review Star Trek Section 31. It's finally out. Now, prior to me starting this review, I just want to say if it looks a little darker than usual, that is because of Storm Ewan. I have no power. So I have no lights, I have no ring light, I'm basically just relying on natural light at this point. Because I've been, I think, several hours without power now. I'm fine. Everything else is fine and all that, but that's why it doesn't look as well lit as I would have liked. But anyways, the Section 31 movie. I have just finished watching it. What are my thoughts? Um, well, it's interesting to say the least. I actually had to pause there so I can actually go write down some character names because otherwise I'm going to forget. So yeah, it's an interesting Star Trek film, to be honest. And straight off the bat, it doesn't feel Star Trek. And I know that's going to turn a lot of people off on this movie because of the fact that, it's a Star Trek film. It doesn't feel like Star Trek. The only two things that are really tying it to Trek is Emperor Jojo and Rachel Garrett. That's it. Everyone else is a new character that we've never seen before. Granted, there are some alien species that we have seen before as well that make an appearance, such as that race from the TOS episode Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. We also have a member from the Section 31 crew that is the same as Ilea from the motion picture, who, spoiler alert, gets murked off within the first half hour of the movie. Which is, I just remembered that I did not write that character's name down, but that's fine. Like I said, they didn't play a massive importance in the film, unlike the rest of the characters. So yeah, we basically pick back up where to find out what happened to Emperor Jojo after she came back from the 32nd century. And this is set during the lost era of Star Trek. Between the end of the Undiscovered Country and the beginning of the Next Generation. It's kind of sprinkled in around there. Now, it could possibly still actually take place between anywhere from the voyage home to Next Generation, because we are given a start date, but we're not given an exact year. But because it's dealing with Rachel Garrett, I'm assuming it's the Lost Era. And so, she Giorgio kind of gets recruited by Section 31 because there's this deal that's going to come down that of this powerful bioweapon that the Federation is like, deal with that. Pawn it off to Section 31 because it's all been dealt with outside of Federation space, so they don't really have any jurisdiction. So instead of having to go guns blazing, or rather diplomacy, they are sending the actual gun blazing Section 31. And that is where we meet our crew, essentially. So the main guy here, and again, I had to write down the names, otherwise I wouldn't forget, is Alok Zahan. I probably butchered that. He has an interesting backstory that we learn pretty later on, that he is older than he appears to be, and that is because he was an augment, forced upon augment during the Augment War of the 20th century. Now, bear that in mind. They specifically mentioned the 20th century. So, that is before the whole timeline changed, where now it happens in the 21st century, in around 2024-ish. Because, that's what we got word from in the early on in season 2 of Strange New Worlds. So that's very interesting as well. And then, of course, we get introduced to the rest of our crew. Quasi is a part of an alien species that we have seen, of course, from the Undiscovered Country as well. That shape-shifting race that I'm drawing a blank on the name. I liked his character. I thought he was pretty fun, for a character as things go for this movie. I really did enjoy, you know, him interacting with the crew. Of course, we do kind of see him shapeshift. He doesn't shapeshift as often, but he does. We see in one of the and a trope that I absolutely hate is when they reveal a plan. Instead of when they say, "Oh, we had a plan," and they reveal the plan never works. Type of situation, obviously, because Alok contacted Emperor Jojo, and she sniffed out that he was Section 31 instantly. So that kind of put a dampener on that one. And then, of course, Lieutenant Garrett, which is, I'm happy that they actually did, because we weren't sure what rank in Starfleet she was leading up to this movie's release. We knew that it was Rachel Garrett because we knew even before we even had a trailer, because of a movie or an article that got released ages ago that essentially confirmed that it was Rachel Garrett. But she is a lieutenant throughout this, and she is a liaison for Starfleet. She's basically there to make sure that everything goes by the book. And I have to say, I really love the actress who played Rachel Garrett in this, because all we've really had in terms of Rachel Garrett is that one episode of The Next Generation, Yesterday's Enterprise. So to see the budding start of that leading into what we see in Yesterday's Enterprise is amazing to see. But there's a joke that definitely lingers too often, in my opinion. Once was enough, where Rachel Garrett constantly is talking about how she wants to live to become captain. That's just basically hamming it into our face, like, hey, nothing, nothing's going to bad happen to Rachel Garrett, because she has to stay alive in order for Yesterday's Enterprise to happen, and for the peace talks for the Klingons to happen. And that's what bugged me the most about that, is the fact that it was a recurring gag. But we do see that at the end of all of this, she does get promoted to lieutenant commander. But it seems that she's going to still have some dealings with the Section 31 crew, or rather, of what's left. Then we get introduced to Fuzz. And I have to say, what a god-awful Irish accent. Dear God, that was so insufferable. As an Irishman myself, that was atrocious. I just, every time, to be honest, every time I heard him speak, all I kept thinking of was that deleted scene from the 2009 Star Trek film where Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine are doing fake Irish accents, and it sounded like Zachary Quinto's interpretation of an Irish accent. That's how god awful it was. And it was, again, but at the same time, it was an interesting new species. Like, yes, he presents as Vulcan, but that's just a robot body meat suit, essentially, because there's a little organism that is controlling him. That we learned that Section 31 were the ones who actually initiated first contact with, not the Federation, which is very, very interesting. We also know that he has a wife, and that they apparently have 100. They can have like 190,000 hatchlings, which is interesting, because at the start he does go to start to name off a few. Two of them that he names is Trip 1 and Trip 2. That to me felt like a callback to Charles Tucker III, or aka Trip, from Star Trek Enterprise. And then we also get introduced to Zep, which is the big hulking suit person. One interesting thing that I couldn't place the voice until the very end. We do have a control. Section 31 still uses control, but a different control than the one that we dealt with in season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. But anyway, I'm 8 minutes into this review. What is the whole fucking plot of this? The entire plot essentially stands around that there, again, it's tying back to the Terran Empire, because the bioweapon that this person has brought onto Giorgio's station is basically Terran, and it's something that she had constructed called the God Sand, and it was going to be it was a bioweapon that she was going to use should her reign be cut short. But then she grew a conscience and ordered its destruction. It was not destroyed, and it's found its way into the Prime timeline. And it turns out that we do get to see the beginning of the movie, how she became the Emperor. And it's not how I thought it was going to go. So, how she became Emperor was she was sent away for 2 years with a bunch of other prospective recruits to become the new Emperor. And, obviously they had to kill each other. And so it was herself and somebody else named Sam that was still alive. And the final test was to return home and kill your parents, kill your entire family, so that way you'd have no attachment left to become Emperor. Obviously, Giorgio done that. Sans didn't. But we also learned that there's a bit of a love going on between the two of them. And we do see that after the Godsend's construction, Sans brought it to Giorgio. Turns out that the people who made it decided to kill themselves, and so he kills himself. And I have to admit, I knew instantly before we knew that Sans killed himself, that the person who fought with the Emperor to get the Godsend was Sans. I figured out instantly. I also figured out that Foz was the mole, because we do have a bit of a mole later on that kills Zeph, because as fun as Zeph is as the big meathead with strong no IQ, well, it was interesting, but like I said, I instantly knew that it was Fuzz that was the mole right away. And so it turns out that Sans basically, the Empire is falling, which we knew, because this is basically, Spock, Mirror Universe Spock, disrupting the Terran Empire, which then, of course, we have a new strong dominant force being, Bajorans, Klingons, Cardassians taken over. And so the plot, the idea is that use the Godsend on the Prime timeline when we have an ion storm, because when an ion storm happens in the Prime timeline, it also happens in the Mirror Universe timeline, and that creates a corridor for people to move between the Prime and Mirror Universe. And so they're going to send a message to what's left of the Terran Empire to come and take over the Prime timeline. And that's basically it. Eventually, of course, as always, it does get stopped. Zeph is killed by Foz. And again, terrible Irish accent from Foz. But in the end, the Godsend is used to destroy the corridor for that ion storm. And then we cut back to 3 weeks later. That voice that I recognized in Common Place, Jamie Lee Curtis as Control. That I was not expecting. As soon as the Control popped up, I was like, oh shit! Now I recognize the voice. Which is, I'm happy. It was a cameo that I was not expecting, to say the least. But yeah, that's basically Section 31. Now, I know this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I know that's not, I instantly know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, The critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes has it at 19% when I checked it before watching it. And I know now that it's out and a lot of people are going to watch it, a lot of people are not going to like it, and a lot of people aren't going to love it. I fall into the category of in the middle. I definitely liked it. It's different, and I'm not afraid of, Star Trek going in a different route. But I do know a lot of people are going to hate it because it doesn't feel Star Trek. And that's okay. Art is subjective. You're allowed to like and dislike whatever the hell you want. But for me, I liked it. I definitely liked it. I won't go to say is that I loved it, that it's the best Star Trek movie ever made. No, it's because it's not. You know, First Contact is the best Star Trek movie ever made. And I've seen a few people who done early reviews. Like I think it was IGN, that whoever reviewed it over at IGN said that it goes in between. Like the ranking would go have Section 31 in between Insurrection and Nemesis. And I agree. You know, it's not it can be better than Insurrection and Nemesis, but in compared to all the other amazing Star Trek films, yes, I am including the Final Frontier in that one because it's not as bad as people say it is. You know, they are better in large part. They are better than this movie, but for what it is, I enjoyed it. You know, for the hour and a half that it was, I enjoyed it. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this movie in the comments down below. And as always, I will see you all on the very next upload, which will be on Wednesday, of course, as I'll be continuing to do a over 2 hour video showing off my particular part of my collection. But anyway, I'll see you all next time.